Good evening and welcome to The List on UW-TV. I'm Zach Kreider.
And I'm Charlie Siegel, and for the next few minutes we'll present our top 5 sports stories of the week and discuss why they made the top 5. Did your top 5 make our list? Let's find out. At number 5, some big injuries and performances have impacted the association over the last week, as the NBA season is about 20 games left. Zach, which players may be dealing with injuries right now, and who has been balling out leading their team to recent success?
Well, as much as I don't like them, Charlie, I feel like we have to talk about the Celtics. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They're 2.5 games currently behind the Pistons for the 1 seed. Again, don't really like them. Don't really like Jason Tatum. But Jason Tatum recently returned from injury in his first game back. He had 15 points. He was 6 for 16. Also had 20 recently against the Cavs. Also shot 6 for 16. So there's clearly some rust. There's still a little bit of, getting back into the rhythm of basketball. But those were both wins. This is a team that if they're able to get their rhythm back, specifically Tatum, they could make a run for the championship.
And there are several players in the NBA that are close to missing the threshold for missed games to win awards. And these are players like Nikola Jokic, who missed 16 games this year, Victor Wembanyama, who missed 14 games, Luka, who missed 12, Cooper Flagg, who missed 12 games, who, if he does miss 5 more, he is out on Rookie of the Year. Other players like SGA missing 11 and Anthony Edwards missing 10. Earlier we were talking about how there should be an extension of this threshold to maybe 20 games so that these players have a better chance of winning awards with their injury. I think it's 17 games is too short. There's a lot of great players that are putting their bodies out on the line. And if they're going to assert dominance in this league, you have to extend the threshold.
Yeah, and Cooper Flagg not winning Rookie of the Year kind of sounds a little bit arbitrary. I mentioned Con Knuppel, phenomenal player, but it should be Cooper Flagg. At number 4, the UW-Whitewater women's basketball team hosted one of 16 regional rounds over the weekend for the 2026 NCAA Division III women's basketball tournament. The Warhawk men's team traveled to St. Louis for their first round matchup in their tournament. Charlie, how did both teams do in their respective brackets, and what's next for the teams that were in these quads?
Well, first off, I want to address the men's here. The Whitewater men's team unfortunately fell short over the weekend after a loss to Washington University in St. Louis in the second round game of the NCAA tournament. The Warhawks were trailing most of the game, but came very close to mounting a comeback until Washington scored a crucial 3-pointer to seal the game in winner's fashion. It's very unfortunate for these Whitewater men's. They played hard, but unfortunately it doesn't work out the way you want.
And go back to that first game that they played against Loras. They won that 85-76, an incredible shooting performance. They shot 72% from the field, 60% from 3. They had 7 players that scored at least 7 points. It was an incredible offensive showing. Like you said, a very unfortunate game to wash you. Going over to the women, they had a great first game. They won 70-65. Against Transylvania, a team that we didn't really think they would beat, but they played a great game. 3 threes from Bree McCurdy. Mia Gillis chipped in 22. Stenkleft had 16. And they played great defense down the stretch, but unfortunately did fall to UChicago, a team that has looked great so far in the first couple of games. Chris Sanders looks like an otherworldly player, like possibly one of the best players in the country at the moment. She had 25 in this game, and she had 4 threes in the round of 64 to beat Gustavus Adolphus. This was a great game from UChicago. But again, fourth quarter slump from the women's team. They shot 1 for 12 in the fourth quarter, including 1 for 7 from 3. That's just not going to win you an NCAA tournament game.
At number 3, with Division I college basketball regular season coming to close and roughly a week to go until the big dance, how many teams are fighting to punch their ticket during the conference tournaments? Zach, what teams finished the regular season strong, and what teams have already found out they are going dancing?
Well, this was a great weekend for college basketball, not only for Division III, but also for Division I. BYU just took down number 10 Texas Tech 82-76. We saw 27 and 6 rebounds from guard Robert Wright. We mentioned a couple weeks on the show that he needs to step up in the absence of Richie Saunders. So far, he's done a great job of that. Marquette took down number 4 UConn 68-62. Hasn't been a great year for Marquette, but great win for them. Nigel James Jr., he had 19 points, 7 assists in that one. And how about the Badgers? We talk about them every week. They're a team that, they're not going to win games they're supposed to win, and they're not going to lose games they're supposed to lose. We don't know if this team's going to be a first-round exit or win the whole thing. They took down Purdue. Great shooting performance from them, but man, I just don't know with this team.
And moving over to the eastern side of the country, the college basketball world is looking like a hospital room after seeing that Caleb Wilson, forward for UNC, sustained a left hand injury during the Miami game. Wilson remains out due to that fractured hand, and he has missed games against Pittsburgh, NC State, and Syracuse, and his return is anticipated as soon, though he may need a cast or a splint on his non-shooting hand upon his return. Wilson leads UNC with 19.8 points averaging a game with 9.4 rebounds averaging a game. UNC is 12-6 in conference play, and this is making his return crucial to UNC's tournament push.
Yeah, it looks like he will probably be healthy to go before the draft at least. This is a guy that's probably going to be a top 5, top 10 pick, a great player. But we also saw them lose to a Duke team. This Duke team is just unbelievable, along with Michigan, who had a huge win against Michigan State. I believe that was 80-70. But again, both these teams I mentioned either last week or the week before, two teams I think will probably meet in the NCAA tournament championship. I don't see why not. We've got more coming up on the list, including a discussion on the baseball happenings around the globe and the slew of moves prior to a new league year starting. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the show. Josh, let's take a look at some highlights from this last game here. What a performance by the UW-TV staff in this one.
Absolutely. Look at this clip. Bree is going to signal for Ryan to cut to camera 2, but instead Ryan's going to cut to 3, and that's where things might take a turn. But hold on a second here. Just when you think it's over, Bree makes the split-second decision and reaches over Ryan to cut to camera 2 herself.
And the truck goes wild. Once again, the UW-TV staff delivers.
Here at UW-Whitewater Intramural Sports, we have a motto: a sport for everyone and everyone in a sport.
Come on! Kept it anyways. Oh, she got that off, and they're going to count it.
Had a blast. Always have fun at intramurals.
Every day we strive to go above and beyond that goal by providing healthy exercise, promoting leisure education, and giving students that competitive atmosphere they are looking for.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Brings me back to those high school days with Friday Night Lights.
With our 25 different intramural sports offered, we guarantee that we have a sport for you. Go to our website and find your sport today.
Welcome back to the list on UWW-TV. Let's continue the countdown to this week's top sports stories. At number 2, the World Baseball Classic has been fun to watch for its first week, from walk-off finishes to strong performances across the board, and so much more to talk about. Charlie, what do you make of the first week of play in the 2026 WBC?
Well, Zach, as of right now, Team USA is 2-0 in pool play of the 2026 World Baseball Classic, having won against Brazil and Great Britain. Japan is also performing well with a 3-0 record, and they've advanced to the quarterfinals. The tournament is ongoing, and the top 2 teams from each pool will advance to the quarterfinals. But real quick, I want to highlight my favorite play that I've seen so far through the WBC. It has to be Kyle Schwarber's 2-run homer in the 5th inning. 427 feet for good old Kyle Schwarber, setting the tone for Team USA in the 5th inning to beat Great Britain. I love that. Kyle Schwarber, former Chicago Cub, will always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, let's go USA, huh? Well, I got to focus again on the Dominican Republic. This was a team that I said, I believe a couple weeks ago, that I think they can win the entirety of the WBC. They look great so far, also 2-0 in pool play. They won the first game 12-3 against Nicaragua and 12-1 against the Netherlands. They look great. Like I said, the bats for this team are incredible. Junior Caminero and O'Neal Cruz, they both have 2 home runs. There's a lot of players tied with 2 home runs, so I guess they're tied for first technically. But again, great bats for this team. And speaking of Team USA, we had a huge blow that we heard about earlier. Tarik Skubal, the back-to-back Cy Young Award winner, he led the league, the MLB, in ERA the past 2 seasons. He announced that he is stepping away from the WBC to return to Detroit Tigers camp. A huge blow for this team. Like we said, this is a team that they're favored to win at the moment because they're just loaded on all ends. So hopefully Paul Skeens and the rest of that pitching crew can hold it down, because this is a huge loss. Just a phenomenal player in Tarik Skubal.
And our top story of the week, the new NFL League year will officially start in the afternoon of Wednesday, March 11th. But on Monday, March 9th, the free agency negotiation period opened up, and we saw a plethora of moves across the league. Zach, what are some of the eye-popping names that put pen to paper today?
Well, I really wish that this show was 2 hours because I feel like we could spend the entirety of the 2 hours talking about just this one topic. This was so incredible to see. Felt like literally every 2 minutes we would see something different, and it was just incredible. But I want to focus on all trades and free agency moves that involve the Ravens. You want to talk about Isaiah Likely. He always was second fiddle to Mark Andrews. Now goes to start for the Giants. How many yards do you think he'll have for the Giants?
Likely 80.
But we have a couple other moves to talk about. Of course, Tyler Linderbaum, I think the best signing of free agency so far. He signed a 3-year, $81 million contract, the highest ever salary for an interior offensive lineman. And of course, we expect them to take a guy like Fernando Mendoza first overall. You have to protect those rookie quarterbacks. It is so paramount. And of course, Max Crosby, saw him get traded from the Raiders to the Ravens. He was traded for 2 first-round picks. I think a little bit of an overpay for a guy that's 29 years old.
And we're talking about the Ravens, and my favorite about this Tyler Linderbaum signing is Ashton Genty. You have Jackson Powers-Johnson now moving to guard. Linderbaum's taking up that center position. This is opening up room for Genty to finally break out and be the running back that we thought he could be. But some other crazy signings that happened this week is Tua to Atlanta. I like to call now there's 2 left-handed quarterbacks in Atlanta. I like to call them the Southpaws of the Southeast. I love that. Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs. The Chiefs were looking for a running back. There was speculation that they were going to get a great running back in Jeremiah Love, who's now projected to go in the top 3 of the NFL draft. Looks like now they're saying, no thank you. We want the Super Bowl MVP in our backfield. Michael Pittman traded to the Steelers. The Steelers are building up that wide receiver room. Now they have DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman out there to catch some passes. Other players, DJ Moore traded to the Buffalo Bills, getting Josh Allen more weapons. The Chicago Bears get a second-round pick in return. And another crazy signing in Devin Bush going to the Chicago Bears, replacing Tremaine Edmonds in that linebacker room.
And that will do it for this edition of The List. We'll be back next week to talk about next week's Top 5 Sports Headlines. I'm Zach Kreider.
And I'm Charlie Siegel. We'll see you next time for more stories right here on UW-TV.